While drones and missiles dominate the headlines in the Gulf, another shock just hit Dubai. But this one could reshape the city's rental market. According to unofficial estimates, between 300,000 to 500,000 people in Dubai live in shared or partitioned apartments. And now the government has introduced a new law that could fundamentally change how these apartments operate. So what exactly is happening? And how could this affect rents, investors, and the real estate markets in general in Dubai? Let's break it down. Dubai is often associated with luxury towers, waterfront villas, and ultra-high-end real estate. But behind that image exists a parallel housing system. Across districts like Deira, Al Nahda, Al Qusais, International City, Discovery Gardens, and even Dubai Marina, many apartments are subdivided to multiple rooms or even bed spaces. In some cases, a two-bedroom apartment may house 8, 10, or even more residents. For many low-income workers, this is the only way to afford living in the city. And for some property investors, this model created a very profitable strategy. Instead of renting a two-bedroom apartment for, let's say, 70,000 dirham a year, landlords could earn double that amount by renting individual rooms or even bed spaces. But that system has long operated in a gray area. And now the authorities are stepping in. One question many people might ask, why now? Shared accommodation has existed in Dubai for decades. In areas like Deira, Karama, or Satwa, it was always common for workers to share apartments to reduce living costs. But over the past few years, the scale of this practice has changed dramatically. Dubai's population surged after 2022, driven by global relocations, new businesses, and a wave of expatriates moving to the city. At the same time, rents increased sharply across many districts. As housing costs climbed, more tenants began dividing apartments into partition rooms or bed spaces. And in some buildings, one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartments were suddenly housing 8, 10, or even more people. This created a new kind of rental economy. Some tenants and even small investors started leasing entire apartments and then subletting them room by room. The math could be extremely profitable. An apartment renting for 70,000 dirham a year could sometimes generate, over 120,000 when divided into multiple bed spaces. But this model also brought problems. Building managers reported overcrowding, higher wear of facilities, safety concerns, especially in case of emergencies such as fires or evacuation. In other words, what was once a limited housing practice quietly evolved into a large informal rental system, operating across many parts of the city. And this is likely one of the reasons authorities decided that this is time to regulate it. This month, Dubai has introduced a new law regulating shared housing across the Emirate. It establishes the clear rules for property owners, tenants, and companies managing shared housing. Its goals are straightforward: prevent overcrowding, ensure safety and sanitation standards, regulate rental practices, and improve living conditions. But if an apartment is used like this, for example, two-bedroom, and it has 2 to 3 residents and no partition, these kind of arrangements are usually not targeted by the new regulations. So according to the new framework, shared housing must obtain official permits. Authorities can define maximum occupancy. Violations may lead to fines up to 1 million dirham. Where will people from the bedspace housing go? There are several possible scenarios, in my opinion. First of all, some will stay. Many landlords will simply remove the partitions and reduce the number of residents. Some will move to labor housing, so-called labor camps or staff accommodations. I assume that some might move to other emirates, for example, Sharjah or Ajman, where rents are significantly lower. For the first time, the entire segment of the housing market is moving from informal practice to formal regulation. This is where things become interesting. If occupancy rules are enforced, the number of residents per apartment may drop significantly. For example, an apartment that currently houses 10 people may only be allowed to accommodate 3 or 4. That means that the same number of residents suddenly require many more housing units. In other words, regulations could unintentionally create a supply shock in the lower cost rental segment. And that may push demand towards studios, small apartments, and older buildings. But there is another side to this story, because not everyone in the market will benefit. Some investors purchase properties especially for the shared housing model. The math was simple: higher density meant significantly higher rental income. But if occupancy limits are strictly enforced, those returns can drop dramatically. And a property generating 150,000 dirhams per year under standard leasing conditions. For investors who build a strategy around this model, the economics suddenly change. And that could lead to another potential market effect. Some owners may decide to sell these properties instead, which could put downward pressure on prices in certain older buildings. Let's look at the bigger picture. This law comes at an interesting moment for Dubai. The city is currently experiencing a construction boom, but most new projects are focusing on luxury and high-end segments, branded residences, and so on. At the same time, the supply of affordable housing remains relatively limited. If shared housing becomes more regulated and less dense, the city may face a growing gap between demand and available affordable units. And that could influence both rental prices and investment strategies for the upcoming years. So while global attention may be focused on geopolitics and regional tensions, a quieter shift may be taking place inside Dubai itself. A new housing law could reshape one of the least visible but very large segments of the city's real estate market. Share your thoughts in the comments, hit the subscribe button, and see you in the next video.